see more people and we hear more names, it'll become a lot more real to me. But right now, I feel like I'm still in the bubble of the day, and the whole experience is just kind of numbing.
Fairbanks has been a cameraman for 16 years, but today he wasn't operating on experience. It was instinct. And that's what drew him back for one last shot. That's when the tower began to collapse.
I was looking in the viewfinder, and I just saw this reverse mushroom cloud billowing down, and I realized my proximity, and immediately just turned and started running north.
But for Evan Fairbanks, this is the image that will haunt him and us for the rest of our lives.
The image of that plane just coming out of nowhere, coming into the frame, and disappearing into the south side of the tower, as if a floor had been hollowed out and it was a hangar that it was just landing in. We've seen these images in movies, and we know that it's all artificial, and Hollywood makes it. And it's hard to put together that it's real this time.
Thank you, John. John McWethy at the Pentagon telling us that according to the fire chief, the Arlington fire chief, there could be as many as 800 people dead in the attack on the Pentagon today. And lest you lose sight of it at all, this is where an American Airlines flight, American Flight 77, which was destined from Washington Dulles originally to the West Coast, had 58 passengers and 6 crew on board. This was the aircraft, this Boeing 757, which attacked the Pentagon today. I can't think of any other words to use other than attacked. And the fear of violence continues tonight. ABC's John Miller, I gather, has just heard of an incident in New Jersey.
The New York City Police Department has a report that the FBI is responding to New Jersey because a truck reportedly loaded with explosives has been stopped by authorities on the road there, and the men with that truck have been detained. Members of the Joint Terrorist Task Force, according to the New York police officials, are responding to question those people. I want to underline that all the phones to police headquarters and to the FBI from here seem to be disabled.
All emergency workers around the city are on call. There is mayhem and chaos, people running everywhere. A clear late summer day turns into what feels like a nuclear winter.
Nobody has any visibility.
People are caught in the tower, hanging out of windows, some jumping 80 floors to their deaths. Others hoping, praying to be rescued. As men and women head down, trying to flee the building, firefighters are racing up to do their job, only to become the first victims.
We better get out of the way!
Then, incredibly, Tower 1 comes tumbling, cascading down. Some of the emergency workers who managed to make it out need to be treated themselves. Fire union officials say of the first 400 firefighters on the scene, 200 are missing, probably killed. Meanwhile, there are reports at the White House that the Pentagon has been hit. A spokesman for the Pentagon said he had no firm number of casualties as firefighters struggled to contain the blaze. At 10:30 Eastern Time, the second World Trade Center tower collapses. And minutes later, a full-scale state of emergency is declared in New York.
The effort now has to be to save as many people as possible.
Police officers do everything they can to evacuate downtown Manhattan. The scene quickly turns to triage. Initial reports say at least 2,100 people have been injured, 600 of them taken to hospitals by mid-afternoon, 5 dead on arrival. 1,500 more walking wounded were taken across New York Harbor to New Jersey's Liberty State Park, and dozens of ambulances raced there as well. Meanwhile, uptown, hundreds turned out to give blood, some waiting 2 or 3 hours at blood donation centers. And then late afternoon, 5 p.m., still another building collapses. 7 World Trade Center, ruined by falling debris from the Twin Towers. But overall, there are some stories of lives saved.
As we came downstairs, we were just dragging people along with us.
At the Pentagon, workers continued through the early evening to contain the fire and smoke, but can't get to ground zero, where officials fear many are dead, including the passengers and crew from the American Airlines plane.
The victims, Peter, and this site still stands ready with 50 operating rooms inside, but at this point they are going to dispatch teams to perform amputations on the site.
Okay, Cynthia, thanks very much. 50 operating opportunities at Chelsea. This is this enormous sports entertainment center on the west side of Manhattan, which has been turned into a disaster preparation area at the moment, and the federal government and the state government and the city and hospitals and volunteers from every aspect of the medical community have descended on these locations tonight to be ready lest they are able to help. Governor Pataki and the mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, said a short while ago they've got enough volunteers at the moment, but the reason that the governor called for doctors, I'm going to dig through my notes here and see if I can find that number again. The reason that the governor of New York said that they were put up a couple of phone numbers was because he made it very clear that while they have enough doctors at the moment, even though the tremendous pressure on the hospitals in lower New York particularly, and burn victims have been taken to a variety of centers in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and as far north as Canada.
The giant symbol of American financial power came crumbling down. Two hijacked airliners loaded with scores of passengers slammed into New York's World Trade Center. The twin 110-story towers set ablaze. The well-coordinated terrorist attack began before 9 o'clock in the morning. The first plane striking the northern tower. Just 15 minutes later, another giant aircraft loaded with fuel slammed into the southern building.
Another plane just hit. Right, oh my God, another plane has just hit.
With New York in shock, the towers then came tumbling down. First, Tower 1.
Top floors collapsed down.
Then, Tower 2. But the devastation didn't end there. Shortly after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Building 7, home to many Wall Street firms, crashed to the ground. Officials say it will take days to count the number of dead and injured, but with 50,000 workers in the Trade Center alone, New York's mayor says the numbers may be too much to bear. A third plane bound for San Francisco from Newark crashed about 80 miles outside of Pittsburgh. 45 people died in that accident. And also a fourth plane went down at the Pentagon in Washington. That's where my colleague Aline Sergani is. Aline?
Drew, American Airlines Flight 77 from Washington Dulles to Los Angeles slammed into the Pentagon at 9:38 this morning. At this hour, the Pentagon is still on fire. Dozens of emergency search and rescue teams, some from all over the country, are on the site at this hour, but they still can't get to ground zero. 40 minutes after the World Trade Center attacks, the Pentagon met a similar fate. A hijacked American Airlines plane bound for Los Angeles slammed into the Pentagon, causing one wing of the building to collapse. President Bush says he'll use the full resources of the United States to track down those responsible.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
It happened mid-morning. Witnesses say it looked like a huge orange fireball hit the building.
I couldn't believe that I saw an American Airlines jet just gliding right in to the side of the Pentagon. A huge black billow of smoke came up.
Washington is now under the highest level of security, but officials say even that isn't enough to make any guarantees.
A terrorist can attack at any time, at any place, using any technique. It is physically impossible to defend at every time, in every place, against every technique.
Partly for that reason, much of Washington was shut down, from federal buildings to offices to schools.
God bless America.
The Capitol building was also closed, but members of Congress, hundreds strong, returned to Capitol Hill tonight to say life in Washington will go on.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed.
And coming out live now, as you can see, the Pentagon is still on fire. Firefighters say they will spend the whole evening trying to put out the flames you see behind me. They say the building itself is not stable enough to go inside to search for victims. But the Arlington County Fire Chief says his fear is that the death toll could reach as high as 800.